So it stops running, the thing stops moving, but I can hear it stepping very slowly. You can hear the leaves crunch very, very slowly, and it's breathing. I can hear it breathing. I don't know if you ever heard a coyote howl.
Yes, I have.
So it was like a mix of a coyote howl, a human scream, and a really deep breath at the same time. So it's terrifying because I don't know exactly where it's at. I don't know where it's coming from, and I don't know what it's doing.
The Codega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with the Codega and sharing one of yours.
Welcome, wanderers of the weird, to Codega's Codex of Curiosities, where the shadows whisper secrets and the forgotten is just waiting to be remembered. I'm your guide, of course, Rye the Codega, and tonight we're venturing into the dark woods of the unexplained. Let me ask you something. What happens when the wilderness looks back? There are places in this world where the air grows still, where your instincts scream louder than logic, and something primal tells you you're not alone. Places where the land holds memory, and not all of it is human. From ancient burial grounds to battlegrounds soaked in blood, these locations become magnets for the strange. And sometimes people stumble into them alone, unsuspecting, under a full moon. Tonight's guest has just had not just, but he's had an experience like this. But what he encountered wasn't in any field guide. So stick with us, and tonight we're gonna hear what may change the way you feel about the woods forever. All right, everyone. Like I said, welcome to Codex Codex of Curiosities. I'm Rye, and I just want to say thank you, everyone, for watching the show and subscribing and liking. Of course, I'm sure you guys know that we are now considered a multi-award-winning podcast. So I want to do a thank you to everyone, for supporting me along this journey, because it really makes all the difference. If you guys want to support the show, I got hats, merch, I got some great shirts coming out. I'm going to make some new designs that maybe will intrigue you, inspire you. And that is how you support the show, because this is considered a source of independent media. I don't have any sponsors. I'm just doing it myself. I'm doing my best at it. And, my supporters are you, my listeners and my viewers. All right, without further ado, let's bring our guest to the stage, and let's welcome Jeff to Codega's Codex of Curiosities. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm super stoked.
Awesome. And I'm very excited to have you. I know we tried once before, but there was a bit of a work issue, so we had to reschedule, and here we are, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your story. And of course, like many of my my previous guests, I discovered you on Reddit. I read your story on Reddit, and I was like, okay, this sounds intriguing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Jeff, do you want to do a little bit of a introduction to yourself, and then let's just go right into the story then.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. But my upbringing was not Indianapolis based. Indianapolis is a big city. I was more raised in like southern Indiana. I hunt, I fish, I hike, I camp, everything outdoors. I'm into it. So like 2016, 2017, I'm a very avid coyote hunter. November is kind of coincides with two of the best seasons in the state, deer and coyote. So I was working one day and I'm going to go coyote hunting after work. So I get home, load all my gear up, and where I hunt's about maybe an hour and 15 minutes south of Indianapolis. So I get home, load all my gear, drive down there, and I go to this spot. It's called Hickory Ridge because it's a ridge full of hickory trees. So,
it's the name is not lost onto itself.
Absolutely. So I get there, I unload my gear. I always carry a secondary, if you will, on my chest. I carry a 9mm Glock on my chest, just for situations when it's needed. It's not something that I hunt with. It's just something that's if needed.
Of course.
So I start
And sorry.
walking.
And are you by yourself? Are you going off by yourself?
I am by myself at this point in time. It's not something I typically would do because it was a last minute thing. Nobody could go. So I just decided to go out by myself. I'm comfortable by myself. So it wasn't really that big of a deal to me.
And of course, that's when something always goes awry. It's like, yeah, I'll go by myself.
Absolutely, 100%. Something always goes bad when you're by yourself. So I do coyote call sets where I call for about 10 or 15 minutes and then I stop and listen. If a coyote calls back, I try to get it to come in closer. If not, I move on. I usually do these in like 100 yard spans. I'll call for 15 minutes, move 100 yards, so on and so forth. So the first set, nothing happened. And by this time, it's probably 10:30 p.m. So it's winter time in Indiana. So it's been dark for 6 hours. So I move on. I do these sets for probably 30 or 40 minutes. And by this time, I'm probably a mile, maybe a mile and a half from my truck. I can always tell how far I am, especially on this trail. There's a cemetery from a family who used to live on that ridge called Dubois Ridge, or Dubois. I don't know how they say it, but there's a little small family cemetery that's about a mile and a half off of the main road into a trail. I always go to the cemetery. I feel compelled to go into the cemetery and just like say, hey, thanks for whatever.
And this cemetery is like a family cemetery, or is it a specific type of cemetery? Like a Civil War cemetery?
It's just a small old family cemetery. There are Civil War vets in the cemetery. I think the oldest gravestone in the cemetery is from like 1760.
Oh wow, yeah, it's got some history.
Yeah, so it's pretty old. Yeah, absolutely. So I get to the cemetery and I stood there for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I hear this thing. If you can imagine what a cat sounds like when it falls off of something, and you hear two distinct. Like boom, boom, front legs, back legs.
Yes.
It was not that at all. It was just one singular boom.
Okay.
Like a human jumped out of a tree. So that kind of got me off guard. My senses started going, hey, something's not right. So the trail makes like a hairpin turn. You can walk. The cemetery is on your right. You turn a corner, and the cemetery is on your right again. So the cemetery is always on your right, but it's like a U-shaped trail. And I'm standing in the middle of the cemetery, and probably 30 yards in front of me is a pine thicket. I don't know if you've ever walked in a pine thicket, but it's usually very, very quiet because of all the pine needles. So I hear that thing. I step back probably 10 yards and sit down and look at the pine thicket. And I have this it's not a bright flashlight. It's not a hunting flashlight. It's just a small Coast flashlight from Walmart that is for taking your dog out at night. So I start scanning this pine thicket with my flashlight, and I see what to this day I still can't explain it because I don't really know what it was, but it was like 8 feet tall. People say emaciated. People say emaciated, but it's like skinny and glistening skin in the moonlight. And it was just standing like halfway behind this pine tree where it was looking at me.
And how far away was that?
Probably 30 yards tops, maybe 100 feet.
Jeez. Okay. So fairly close.
So not far at all. Too close for comfort.
Of course.
So, my senses were going crazy. Like, hey, that's not something that's supposed to be here. That's not something you're supposed to see. So I immediately think to myself, I have to get back to my truck. And this thing is between me and my truck. So I took like 2 steps to the right towards the trail, and it just bolted. It went from directly in front of me to the left of my left. And to my left is a ravine that goes down about 350 feet. It's a very steep drop.
Okay. So when you described this thing, it was like its skin was shiny, you said? Was it like a specific color? Was it like a pale white color or?
So in the moonlight, it looked like a pale gray. But again, with the cheap flashlight, I didn't get the world's best look at it. But yeah, it was like a pale gray, and I didn't see any eyes. Nothing was glowing. It wasn't I don't know how to explain it.
And you said approximately like 8 foot.
Yeah, I was like 8 or 9 feet tall. It was way higher, way taller than any human I've ever met in my entire life. So this thing bolts so fast to the left, it goes down a ravine, and I started thinking to myself, okay, cool, it's gone, I can go. So I walk to the trail, which is probably, the cemetery sits in between the trail, and it's probably 10 yards on either side of between the trail and the cemetery. So I walked about 10 yards to the trail, and then I can hear this thing, the ravine U's behind you. It follows the trail. And I could hear something moving in the bottom. And it was moving up behind me. And it was moving incredibly fast. So my brain is thinking, hey, this thing's trying to sneak up on you. So my whole body was screaming, run. Being
Yeah.
being a hunter, you never want to run, because that, for any kind of prey animal or predator animal, that triggers an attack response, like they want to attack you. I couldn't overcome that, so I ran. I probably ran 40 yards, and I could still hear this thing coming. Now, this is the point in the story where I lose a lot of people and they stop agreeing with what I'm saying. So my brother my best friend is a police officer, and I've learned from him in the past. There's a tactic that police and military use called tactical fire and pivot. So I'm thinking, I need to get distance between me and this thing. So I stop, pull my secondary or my sidearm, fire all 17 rounds in its direction, and then run away. Most people will say, you shouldn't do that because you don't know your target, you don't know the backstop. I get it. I 100% understand. But in the moment, none of that was registering.
Of course not. You're in this like fight, flight, or freeze moment,
Absolutely.
and you're like, I can, maybe target it or scare it off and give me some distance.
Yeah.
I can actually make an escape, because you're fearing
Yeah.
for your life right at this point in time.
Absolutely. So after the first volley of bullets, if you will, I took off again, probably ran 50 or 60 yards, and I could still hear it running, but it wasn't like a full sprint. It was gaining on me, but not as fast as it was the first time.
This is terrifying. Like, this is
absolutely. It
like,
still gives me nightmare.
I was going to ask you, like, do you have any flashbacks of this? Like, this is something that is out of a horror movie, like a sci-fi horror movie.
So when I hunt this area, I still hunt the same area today. Like, I still hunt the same. It's public property. I still hunt the same area. I never go at night, and if I do go at night, I'm never going by myself. But yeah, after the first volley, I ran probably 60 yards, and logic is starting to kick in, and it's telling me you need to call someone in case something happens. You need to call someone. So I stopped behind a log, and I crouched down, and I called my friend Michael, and I'm telling him, hey man, something's going on. I don't know what it is. There's something chasing me, and if you don't hear from me in 30 minutes, send the cavalry.
And have you also reloaded as well? Have you reloaded your handgun?
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as the last bullet comes out of the round and the slide rack's back, there's a new mag in immediately. Yep. So it stops running, the thing stops moving, but I can hear it stepping very slowly. You can hear the leaves crunch very, very slowly, and it's breathing. I can hear it breathing. I don't know if you ever heard a coyote howl.
Yes, I have.
So it was like a mix of a coyote howl, a human scream, and a really deep breath at the same time. So it's terrifying because I don't know exactly where it's at. I don't know where it's coming from, and I don't know what it's doing. So I popped up, one more volley, took off running, and I probably ran 100 yards at this point. So the truck is probably now 200 yards away. So I'm getting closer, maybe a little closer than that. But this time, the thing was running the whole time. Whatever it was running the entire time.
Was it
enough
matching,
time to turn.
Do you think it was matching your footsteps, or was it gaining on you?
I was going way faster than I was running. If it would have, if there was, and I think about this all the time, if there was probably, if it wanted to get me, it would have gotten me. Um, I don't know that my pistol did anything other than make me feel better. Maybe it kept it off a little bit, and that's why I'm still here and didn't get eaten by this thing.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I do one more volley, and I take off running. I sprint all the way to the truck this time. I can see the truck, but I can hear this thing probably 30 yards behind me, and it is going full force. It's breathing. It's right there. So I get to the truck, throw everything in, get in the truck, and drive away. I never saw it, like the whole thing behind me or chasing me, and I never saw it on the way out of the woods because that's what I did. So I stupidly I left the woods and then came back and drove back by to see maybe if I could see it. Just maybe it was a rabid coyote or something. I personally don't think that's what it
No,
was.
we always try to rationalize it with something.
Yeah,
We're like, oh, it's got to be this. It's an 8 foot tall
yeah,
rabbit coyote, or yeah.
yeah. I never saw anything. Um, to this day, I haven't seen anything else back there. I've had some other experiences on other parts of the woods, but never in that area. Um, but Reddit was the first time that story on Reddit was the first time I ever posted on Reddit. I told myself for a long time, that story stays between me and Michael because telling it to anybody else, I sound like a quack.
Yes.
And
Like
The
I'm saying
Reddit
yes
comments on there,
because I know there's a lot of people that would be like, oh yeah,
yeah,
that's this, that's that. Oh, you're just imagining. It's like
yeah.
no.
Especially there's people on Reddit, not just guys, but there's people on Reddit who are coyote hunters, and their coyote kit is way more advanced than mine. Like they have night vision goggles and thermal scopes and stuff like that. And to me, that's not where I want to go. I want to be in the same element as the coyote. So I don't want to go out there with night vision goggles. And maybe it was something that was very explainable. But to me, it was not explainable at all. It's still not explainable.
No, it does not sound explainable at all. I know on Reddit that there is a lot of like I. I say Reddit is like Moss Isley. It's like the hive and scum of villainy. This is where you'll find it. It's on Reddit.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. There's some fantastic people on Reddit, but there's also the worst, and they will like cut you
Yes.
down. They're like, oh, you shouldn't be shooting into this. You shouldn't be doing that. There's a lot of armchair quarterbacks that will tell you everything you should have or you shouldn't have done. But to be in a situation like that, I honest to God don't blame you for running and gunning more or less is kind of what you were doing
Yeah.
because this is for your life. This was and I believe you that it was an 8 foot tall creature. It sounds along the line of one of two things: either a pale crawler or a skinwalker.
Yeah.
Along this
So,
line.
so I've heard a lot of people. I read a lot of comments on Reddit where people said crawler, and I wasn't really sure what a crawler was um, until I posted that story. I had no idea what a crawler was, and I was thinking more along the lines of like maybe it was a Wendigo. But if you look into Wendigos, 9 times out of 10, you're not coming. They're not. They're just going to grab you, and that's that. They're not going to chase you. And
Yeah, like
I don't think I'm in the right
Wendigos.
region for a Wendigo.
No, Wendigos are kind of like a spirit that has transformed a person who has eaten human flesh, and that means that this is a cannibal. And a Wendigo, if it's a cannibal, it's going to eat you. Like that's the end goal of a Wendigo. Um,
Absolutely.
Pale crawler. I interviewed someone. Her name is Missy, and she had a pale caller experience and she goes into full depth about it. She's also fully investigated. I don't know if you see like the infamous picture of the pale crawler on a trail cam. Have you seen that one where it's just like kind of
I don't think so.
okay? I'll have to share that with you. I'll throw it up here on the comments. And I'm not on the comments, but on the video. So this picture, she has found it to be legitimate. She's done enough research to find it legitimate. It loses its legitimacy because somebody messed with like the timestamp on there and they actually put something else on there. So they changed the original and they're like, oh yeah, now we have two different pictures. Oh yeah, this is a hoax. but the original, she's actually done a ton of research on it, and it's legitimate. So I'll have to share that with you. But yes, the pale crawler has not been a very common cryptid. And people say, oh, you can't call it a cryptid. I believe it is a cryptid or a creature, whatever you want to dub it. But it is seems to be becoming more and more popular. And it's, I feel that in this world, the more attention we give things, the more these things will start to manifest and appear, such as this. And I don't know, what is your thoughts? So let's say I interrupted. You said you looked into a Wendigo. You're not sure, but keep going. I'm going to let you go, and then I will chime in a bit.
Yes, I don't think I'm in. I don't think I'm in the correct region as Wendigos would be. Like, nowhere near mountain ranges. I'm nowhere near like anything that could be considered Algonquin or anything like that. Um, Skinwalker, maybe. My grandma is Cherokee, and I know Skinwalkers are Navajo,
Yeah.
but Cherokee also have.
Yeah, it's a Navajo term, but there is
Yeah,
the same kind of concept throughout.
yeah,
I think every culture has the same.
yeah.
Because I live here in Mexico, and the Mayans, they have something along that line as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I've looked into a few cryptids that maybe it could be, but I think I'm with you. I think it was either I already forgot what I was gonna say.
Skinwalker or
Um,
a pale
it was
crawler.
either a skinwalker or a pale crawler. Those are the it was either one or the other. Um, I don't want to find out.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't want to go back and try to find out. Like I don't have nightmares about it. But I still do have, whenever I'm in that area, I do still have like, well, what if this was different? There's a lot of what ifs.
Of
And
course, of course.
yeah,
Like, what if I didn't shoot? Would
yeah,
have gotten me, or would it have done something else? Like, there's so many possibilities, so many millions of outcomes, and we'll just constantly question ourselves over and over again. What if I would have done this? What if I would have looked at this time? Would I had seen it? I had a better view of it. I don't know. What if I didn't move in the beginning? Would it have shown itself more to me? There's so many questions. And so you said you have been back to this location, including the
yeah,
cemetery as well.
yep.
And nothing out of the ordinary stands out. You have not had any other strange occurrences at all.
Not in that area. The cemetery, the whole area. Once I start getting close to it, it starts giving me. And this was even before this happened. It would give me this really weird. The creeps is the best way I can describe it. It gives me the creeps. Not maybe because it's just an old cemetery in the middle of the woods. But the weird thing about it is I've been going to these woods since I was probably 6 or 7, maybe younger than that. And I've never seen anyone take care of that cemetery, yet it is always taken care of. It's always, the leaves are always raked out of it. There are always like new American flags on the grave sites of veterans, but I've never seen anyone back there.
And how long of a hike is it to get into that cemetery, or where is that cemetery from a nearby road or anything like that access?
If you walk straight from the road to the cemetery through the woods and no trail, it's probably a mile.
Okay. Not
But
too far,
if
but
you take
still out
yeah,
of the way a little bit still, nonetheless.
absolutely.
Now, a quick question here also is, when this incident happened, when you actually, you heard the dunk and you took a look, prior to that, was there anything peculiar? Was there any, smells or sounds or anything? Was there a lack of sound?
The lack of sound is the biggest thing I can point out. Like usually, especially in that area, because there's nothing around, the first set of coyote calls would have a response would have happened. I would have heard coyotes, but I didn't. I didn't really hear any birds. There was nothing really moving. Maybe because it was also late at night and it was dead winter, so that could play a role. But the biggest thing to me is coyotes. I didn't hear any coyotes at all, which is strange because that county in Indiana is littered with coyotes.
Okay, and how long were you out calling for them prior to this incident?
Maybe an hour, 40
Okay.
minutes, an hour.
Okay. So you had walked a fair distance, done a fair amount of calls as well for these coyotes, and there was none that night. And you said
None
like,
at all.
and normally you would at least encounter some fairly soon.
Yeah, usually, especially if I wait later at night to go, because coyotes are more nocturnal than out during the day. Um, when they hear a locator call, no matter if it's the middle of the day or night, when they hear a locator call, it's like a dog hearing an ambulance. They'll start howling, and that's coyotes are the same way. Um, even if they're asleep, if they hear a locator call, they're gonna blast back, and that didn't happen at all.
And with this creature, have you ever tried drawing it out or talking to someone who could draw it, and maybe to try to get some sort of, I don't know, like a picture of it?
I personally haven't tried to draw it out, um, but I have seen some pictures on Reddit of people who have drawn what they see, and there's a lot of similarities to different things. Like people say they saw something really tall with a small head, and it looks like this. Um, it kind of it's kind of that way. Like really tall. I mean, really tall, emaciated, grayish skin. Um, yeah, I could probably if I really sat down and thought about it, I could probably draw it out or have some sort of AI thing make it.
That's always a possibility. Now that we have like the AI capabilities that we have, it's getting better
Yeah,
and better. Always worth a try. Not it might bring back some pretty terrifying memories, but it also might give you more validity of being able to say, yeah, this is what I saw. I've done the same thing.
absolutely.
I've done the same thing myself. I've used AI to draw out some things that I have seen as well, and it really does help because when you try to explain some things, sometimes people just don't get it, and they're like, I don't really know what you're talking about. So you can be like, here, this is what I saw. I think that would be a great thing for you to do. To and like, how many people other than Reddit, because Reddit is kind of like an echo house kind of thing. You can throw it out there, but no one really knows knows Jeff. But how many people in your family have you told your family or friends, other than, I think you said your friend Mike, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've told a few friends. I've told my girlfriend, but um, my friend Nate, who has hunted with me, um, it terrified him. Like he never wanted to hunt again. Once I told him, not that we've we've encountered anything together, but he would rather not encounter anything.
Okay. Yeah, I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to encounter that. It's one thing to have like a bear there and a bear charging you, because it's a bear, and it's
Yeah,
charging, and you're trying to escape from a bear, which is terrifying onto itself. But this is some sort of creature we don't have a definition for. We don't have, we can't place it in into our animal kingdom, into our phylums, into our mammals and everything like that. This is, and you said it was two when it was running. Did it sound? It sounded like it was on two legs,
yeah, absolutely.
bipedal.
Um, if you if you were to run on leaves and gravel and take really big strides, it would be like boom, 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 boom. It was definitely on two legs, 100%.
Wow. Okay, that is absolutely terrifying. And like, I think you said you don't have any like nightmares or anything like that. You don't have any nightmares about this,
No,
or no?
no.
And after you came home, was there any other incidents like at home? Was there any strange things occurring at home after this incident?
Um, so strange things occur at my home all the time. Um, my house was built in like 1860,
Okay, okay.
so strange things happen. Strange things happen all the time. I I always feel like I'm being watched when I'm in the woods now. Um, even if I'm not being, I know there's nothing else there. I always feel like there is, even if it's broad daylight. Um,
Like
I'm very
this is something that people who have experienced these events or these things do claim this after the fact, and it's not like it's a it's a paranoia kind of thing. No, it is this general feeling that you've almost been tagged, and now
Yeah.
you are watched now.
I have a friend who saw what he says is the same thing that I saw in the same woods, and he doesn't. He he came home, sold all of his gear, and he's never stepped a foot in the woods again.
Okay, let's go into your friends. Like, what did your friends experience? What was your friend's experience, if you don't mind going? If you have a good
So
recollection.
he didn't really go into what happened. All he said was he was coyote hunting, and it wasn't the same area I was in. It was on the other ridge, which is probably a half mile away.
Oh, I would still say that's the
But
same area. That's pretty close.
same area, yeah.
Yeah.
But we hunt on like 289,000 acres,
Jeez. Okay.
so it's a lot of property. But he was on the other side, but he was in the bottom, not on top. He was in the bottom where if you were to go down the ridge that thing ran down, the ravine, he was right back in there, probably, like I said, a half mile. But he said it didn't chase him. He saw it, and it was there, and then it wasn't there, and then he turned around and it was over there behind him. So it was in front of him, and then it disappeared, and then it was behind him in seconds, just behind him. And then he left, sold all of his stuff, and he's never been in the woods again.
Okay. So how far away was it the first time he saw it, which was like in front of him?
I didn't really ask him because doesn't really talk about it.
Fair. Okay. Because I'm
But if I had
wondering.
to guess,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
if I had to guess, he hunts with almost the same exact kit that I do. So it was probably the same distance, probably 30 or 40 yards, and the same way behind him.
Jeez. So do you feel it? And this is all, of course, we're all speculating.
Absolutely.
Do you feel that it was maybe two of these creatures, not just one, that there was a second one?
Maybe. But that didn't happen to me. It wasn't there in front of me and then behind me. So maybe it was two. Maybe he saw one and it went behind a tree, and then another one popped up behind him, because he said he didn't hear it move, which is
different from your story, because you said you could hear
absolutely
this thing moving, which, if you're looking at predators, smart predators, they'll show you where they are so that your attention is drawn there while someone else comes in behind. Like wolves will do that as well. They'll show you one wolf, and then the other ones will hit from the sides.
So coyotes do the same thing. They usually run deer into a valley where there's two ridges on both sides. One coyote will chase a deer into the valley to, there's a coyote behind me, and then when they run into the ravine, there's nowhere to go, and then there's 15 coyotes on it.
Wow. Yeah. These things are hunting. That's exactly what they're doing. And that's terrifying. I'm glad you have your secondary firearm with you, because it definitely seemed that you needed it that day. And I don't blame you one bit for, some people will be like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. No, they weren't there. They did not feel that fear.
Absolutely.
Your life was in danger. Let's just be honest. Your life was in danger, and you knew it. And I think that could have actually saved your life. For the distance that you were away from your vehicle, it sounded like. I say that bought you enough time to make it to your vehicle.
Yeah, I've argued with people like that before on Reddit. Like, I try not to argue with people on Reddit, but sometimes it gets to you.
Yes.
Because
they know best. People
are saying, people are like, oh, I've heard coyotes, or I've seen coyotes, and what you described was a coyote chasing you. First of all, I don't think there's ever been a report of a coyote attacking a human in human history. I could be wrong about that, but at least in Indiana, I know that never happened. Second of all, I heard the thing fall out of a tree. Coyotes don't climb trees that I know of. I've never seen a coyote climb a tree. And the most important thing to me is you weren't there, for one. For two, you don't know what I experienced, and you did not feel what I was feeling, which was absolute terror.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Yeah, it fell out of a tree. Coyotes don't climb trees. Coyotes aren't 8 feet tall.
Right.
Maybe if it had mange, it would not have hair. Maybe that's why you saw this emaciated thing. But it's 8 feet tall.
Right.
Coyotes aren't bipedal. They're and there's so many other things. It's like, but in Reddit, everybody is right and you're wrong. So
Absolutely.
it's all right. I've kind of gone to I've gotten to a point where I'll start to respond to people and I'm like, no, delete. I'm just like, whatever,
Reddit's like the Reddit's like the toxic relationship you can't get out of.
it's exactly it.
Because
That's exactly it.
I love Reddit. I love reading stories on Reddit. But once you comment on the story, it just sucks you in, and people are so rude.
It's so true. Like I said, Reddit is like the Moss Eisley spaceport of Star Wars, where it's the you'll never find a more hive of scum and villainy as you will on Reddit. But there are some gems in there, such as yourself, with these amazing stories. Now, you said your friend had an experience. Have you? When you've done any of your research, have you found anybody else in like Indiana? You're in Indianapolis, right? Or Indiana?
Yeah,
Yeah. Have you found any other people in the area with any other experiences, or not yet?
there there are people on Reddit um, who have posted about the same thing. Maybe not in the same national or state forest that I hunt in, but in the same area, the same county, that have seen stuff in their backyard or in a different part of the woods. Um, we actually have a state forest um, close to where I hunt. It actually butts up to where I called Morgan Monroe State Forest that has the largest grouping of um, Bigfoot sightings in Indiana itself.
Oh, okay,
Um,
okay.
yeah, like it's probably once or twice a month people are reporting Bigfoot sightings in Morgan Monroe State Forest.
Wow.
Um,
There's
so
a lot going on.
I think,
Yeah.
oh yeah, there's a lot. But I haven't really sat down with anyone who's experienced something like that and had like a one-on-one conversation and like compare notes.
It would be definitely interesting to to talk to someone about that, because that's fascinating. But yeah, I was just checking out where Missy had her experience, and it was in Mississippi. So not Indiana, but yeah,
Yeah,
I'll definitely share with you that picture that she has and her own picture of this creature as well, and the feeling that she got because she was driving and this thing was on the road, and she ended up like losing all control of her bodily functions, we'll say, because of this terror of this creature that she got from it, and she ended up like going home and sitting in her room for hours and hours and hours without being able to comprehend things. At least you had the sense to make it to your vehicle, and then you even went back for it. I applaud that you went back to see if you could see this thing. That everybody who's ever watched any horror movie would be like, no, go, and
yeah, yeah.
just like, no, I'm gonna go back. That's like, yep, typical horror movie kind of thing. Gotta go back and take a
I
look
just
at
wanted
it.
to, I just wanted to see if I could see what it was.
Of course. I would too.
Yeah,
I think I'm in the same camp as you. I would want to go back, get my headlights on it and to see if I can see this thing. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Jeff, is there any other experiences you've had that you'd love to share?
uh, I haven't nothing that exciting.
Nothing that aside. No, that's fine. Yeah,
No,
this was great. This was a very entertaining and interesting experience, and I applaud you for also having the courage to keep going back out there, because I do know other people who've had these experiences and they have sworn off ever going hunting or going back to those
yeah,
locations. Yeah, it's like, no thank you, and like I said, I think you are marked now, so it's something to be aware of. I'm sure you are, because you feel it. Perhaps, I don't know, just I would almost put, some people now put GoPros on their back. The same types of people, they'll put GoPros on their back just to see if something is following them, so they can document any time of this. Like, there we go, there we go. Do you go out with it now?
every time.
Awesome.
I actually have two. I have one that goes on my backpack strap, and then I have one that goes on my shoulder. One faces forward, one faces backwards.
That is exactly what I would recommend. I think that is perfect. A lot of like Bigfoot researchers, that's exactly what they do. They'll put one forward, one backwards, because these creatures, whatever it is, they are smart, they are watching, and they are waiting. So they are attentive to when you are walking away from them, and that's when you actually might catch something.
Yeah.
Uh, well, Jeff, I want to say thank you
That's
so much. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I said that's the most terrifying part to me. Like I'm not fearful to go into the woods. It doesn't scare me to go out. But there's always that voice in the back of my head that's like, "Hey, buddy, remember what happened last time?" Or "Why are you back here?" It's like that voice in your head when you're on the ledge and it says jump. It's kind of the same thing, but it's like, "Hey, why are you doing this?"
Yes, I know that exact voice. Actually, I'll ask you: is it your voice, or do you actually? And this may sound strange. Do you actually hear a secondary voice that says that to you, or is it your
Yeah,
your
so
own inner voice?
it's a secondary voice, and I've never really paid attention to it until you just said that. Until you asked me that question, I've never really paid attention to it. But now that I think about it, it's not my voice; it's a secondary voice, and it'll ask me like, "Hey, what are you doing? Why are you here?" Stuff like that. It's not like I don't hear voices all the time,
Yep,
but
yep.
yeah, yeah,
Have you answered back?
yeah. I do talk to myself sometimes, especially so when I deer hunt, I do go in the woods at dark, but I'm always with someone. They're always Um, like the last few seasons, I've hunted with my friend Tyler, and he hunts probably 100 yards away from me. But we walk in together and then split off at the last minute. And then when we split off, I'll have a conversation with myself all the way to the tree stand. And I always have a problem now where I don't look forward with the flashlight. I'm always looking at the ground. Um, just in case there is something there, I don't want to see it. I'm always looking at the ground in the
Fair
dark.
enough. I'm laughing because yeah, I don't blame you again. Now,
Yeah.
with this, okay, so I'll just continue with this. So, with that secondary voice that you hear, there's something called mind speak, and it sounds kind of strange, but this is a common phenomena with cryptids, where it is like a telepathic conversation, and it I know we're getting into an area that some people might find kind of strange and weird, but this is something that has been documented by many experiencers, that there is this mind speak. Some people just communicate back like, "Hey, I'm hunting coyotes, or I'm hunting deer. I'm not invading your area." Might be something to consider as well. Like you said, you talk to yourself, but maybe talk to this as a third party, like a extra outside voice almost.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, yeah, it's a little crazy, but I would consider it. I would definitely consider it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just like almost ask for permission. Sometimes asking for permission will give you, and see how you feel. Before that, and then after that, see if there's any change in how you feel.
I'll definitely do that. That's cool. I'm definitely going to look into that.
For sure. Yeah, there was a what is his name? Scott. I'm forgetting his name, but he had this experience. He was a hunter as well, and he lined up. He was on a tree stand, and he lined up his gun, and lo and behold, he actually was sighting a Bigfoot and a dogman at the same time that were together, and they spoke to him, and he
Wow.
said it was absolutely terrifying, and he wanted to get out of there. And this isn't the first person who's had these types of experiences. And I know it sounds really crazy and ridiculous. I know the first time I heard it, I was like, but you start hearing it over and over and over again, that you're like, okay, if you heard it once, maybe the guy's a little crazy. But if you keep hearing the same kind of thing that keeps happening over and over again, you're like, okay, there has to be some truth to this. Maybe half the guys are lying, but not all of them are lying. So I take everything, and I'm like, okay, like I have tried approaching everything with a healthy dose of skepticism, but also a little bit of belief as well.
Okay, so to continue your point of like, this keeps happening, there's some validity to it. In the same year as this happened, as my story happened, um, My dad heard something on the other ridge, which is like a mile away. My dad heard something. This is during the daytime though. My dad heard something. Like 2 weeks later, my brother called my dad from his tree stand because he heard something, and my dad asked him what it was, and he said a monster. They didn't have visuals, but they heard it. Um, 2 weeks after that, my uncle heard it, and then probably a month later is when I had my experience.
Something that's a family. That is another big thing. If something happens within families, it's kind of it can and will happen and continue with families. So that's very interesting. Your brother, your dad, your uncle, and you. You know, very interesting. And I'm assuming you're all kind of in that general same area.
Yeah. This may be on the conspiracy side of things.
That's where I like to play.
Right after right after my uncle, who was the last one to hear something other before me, heard what he heard. I was squirrel hunting. It was like a Saturday morning or something like that. It was real early, real cold. I was coming down a ridge, and a conservation officer was pulled up behind me. I don't know how it is everywhere else, but in Indiana, conservation officers have more authority than police officers. They're allowed to come on your property and all that fun stuff. But he pulled up behind me, and I could see him, and I was probably 100 yards away, and I could see him. He never left. He waited for me. I walked down to my truck, and he gets out, and he starts asking me all the normal questions. Do you have a license? Blah, blah, blah. The last question he asked me echoes in my head to this day. He said, "Have you seen anything that shouldn't be there?" Those are his exact words from a conservation officer. So it makes me wonder, do they know something that we don't?
Of course they do. Of 100%. Of course they do. There's a conspiracy about conservation officers and park rangers that they had kind of like almost sworn to a secrecy, that they know that there's a lot more going out there. But of course, if they start letting this out, people are. You're going to get two things. People are going to be terrified, never show up. Like maybe it's in a national park where a lot of people go camping. People are terrified, never show up. But then you're going to bring in the Bigfoot hunters, the media attention and everything else. So it's kind of like, it's best not to say anything. And sometimes just a simple question of, do you ever see anything that what was it? You ever see anything that shouldn't be there?
That shouldn't be here.
Jeez.
And then the property we hunt, probably 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little longer than that, they started putting up trail cameras everywhere. And it was never like that when I was a kid. They were never there. But over the last 10, 15 years, they've been popping up trail cameras, and there are places they should, like, you would never think to be. I personally, when I deer hunt, I try to get off the trail as far as possible. And you'll run into a trail camera probably 150 yards away from a trailhead, or 150 yards away from a trail that's 2 miles off the road, which is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, they're up there for a reason. They're trying to capture something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, we're just capturing wildlife. Yes, of course. But anything else that maybe shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Wow. Jeff, this has been great. This is very interesting, a very fascinating conversation. I know it's kind of like more and more keeps opening up. But actually, before we go there, when your brother said it was a monster, did any of them try to describe the sound?
He tried, but I don't really. He said it sounded like a lion.
Oh, okay.
But mountain lions we don't have mountain lions in Indiana, or they say we don't. I've never seen one. But mountain lions don't sound anything like a lion, or nothing wildlife that we have in Indiana sounds like a lion. My dad said the same thing. I don't think my uncles, their stories all matched up for the most part.
Yeah. Of course. It's the same thing that's out there. Well,
yeah.
No, I don't know if it could be multiple things out there, but we do know that it's something that it's not, that shouldn't be there. Is the best answer we can give. There's something out there that shouldn't technically be there, but it's there, and you got to see it, you got to experience it, and Jesus, you got out alive, and
I did.
Yeah. Wow. Jeff, I want to say thank you so much for sharing your experience. I really appreciated it, and I think it was a little terrifying as well.
Well, I appreciate having me on and let me tell my story.
Awesome. All right, Jeff, thanks so much.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, everyone, that was Jeff, and yeah, like it seemed like he told his experience, but then it just kind of opened up more and more, and there's more to it, and I think he's going to have a little more digging to do, and there's something out there in the woods, and whatever he experienced in those woods wasn't just a brush with fear. It wasn't a rogue coyote. It was a collision with the unknown. It was a silent, well, I don't know if it was silent presence near a forgotten cemetery, and it was a shadow that just didn't blink, breathe, or back down. Whether it was a creature or perhaps a phantom or something, it was something that just defies all labels. One thing is certain: it wanted him to know it was there. And encounters like this remind us that the forest just isn't always quiet, or at least when it is, that's when we should actually be paying more attention. And sometimes you're not the one that's doing the hunting. The terrifying thought. Now, if you think the veil is thinning, you're not alone. This has been another episode of Codega's Codex of Curiosities, where the line between hunter and hunted just isn't always clear. I'm Rye the Codega, and until next time, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.
Beneath the stars where shadows grow, the Nephilim's echoes whisper low. Bigfoot roams through the forest deep, and Dogman prowls where the brave won't sleep. Across lost history we wonder why, seeking the truth that time tried to hide. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies, aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks, in the void of secrets a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Through the velvet skies, aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks, in the void of secrets a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the Codex flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Legends rise from the Earth's deep core, a lost legacy we can't ignore. With every step, the veil grows thin, revealing worlds where the strange begins. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the Codex, the mysteries come, and always